I don't have to get up.
Welcome to Headlocks, Heels, and Havoc, the wildest mixed tag team in podcasting where the kayfabe drops and the chaos takes over. Let's ring the damn bell.
Headlocks tight, heels on the prowl, dropping elbows, hearing growl, feel the foul. No script here, just real, no bluff. Kayfabe crack, now the dirt gets rough. Headlocks, heels, havoc in the zone. Stepping in the ring, chaos at your home. No filters, no mask, just raw bare tone. Wrestling unscripted, we on the throne. Title belts, mic checks, crowd going crazy. Drop truth bombs, leaving lines feeling hazy. Beyond the kayfabe, past the charade, where legends are born and stories get made. Headlocks, stop it, who's hitting the mat? Welcome to the Havoc where the real talk's at. Tune in, step through, leave the fake at the door. Headlocks, heels, Havoc, now hear the roar.
For over 3 decades, one name stood above the darkness. From the smoke-filled arenas of Texas to the grandest stage in sports entertainment, the legend of Mark Calloway became something bigger than wrestling itself. He wasn't just a superstar. He wasn't just a champion. He became a mythology. Born in Houston, Texas, Mark William Calloway began his journey in the world of professional wrestling in the mid-1980s, grinding through the territories and promotions under names like Texas Red, Mean Mark, The Punisher, before Destiny finally called. Towering at nearly 7 feet tall with a presence that froze crowds in silence, Calloway had all the tools to become a star, but nobody could have predicted he would become one of the most iconic characters in entertainment history. In 1990, the wrestling world changed forever. At Survivor Series, during the time when larger-than-life personalities ruled the industry, a mysterious figure emerged from the shadows, wearing black, moving like death itself. Introduced as The Undertaker, managed by Brother Love and later Paul Bearer, Mark Calloway created a character unlike anything fans have ever seen. Cold, unstoppable, supernatural, a walking nightmare. And from that moment on, wrestling would have never been the same. The Undertaker quickly carved a path of destruction through WWE, defeating legends, winning championships, and creating an aura that transcended generations. He battled icons like Hulk Hogan, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, Mick Foley, Triple H, Randy Orton, Batista, Edge, CM Punk, Roman Reigns, and countless others. Every era had its top star, and every era eventually had to step into the ring with the dead man. But what truly separated The Undertaker from every other legend was longevity. While characters came and went, trends changed, and companies rose and fell, The Undertaker endured. Through pain, surgeries, broken bones, and reinvention after reinvention, Mark Calloway adapted while still protecting the mystique of the character. Whether it's the supernatural dead man or the American badass biker persona of the early 2000s, he remained one of the most respected performers the business had ever seen. Then there was the streak. 21 straight victories at WrestleMania became one of the most legendary accomplishments in wrestling history. For years, fans wondered if anyone could survive the darkness in WWE's biggest stage. Shawn Michaels tried. Triple H tried. Legends fell one by one. The streak became more than wins and losses. It became sacred. Beyond championships and moments, though Mark Calloway earned something even more valuable: respect. Inside the locker rooms across generations, The Undertaker became known as the ultimate leader, a protector of wrestling tradition, a mentor of younger talent, and a man whose word carried weight through the industry. Many wrestlers viewed him as the true locker room general for WWE for decades. By the time he officially retired in 2020, The Undertaker had transformed from wrestling character into global cultural icon. Few promoters in any form of entertainment have maintained relevance mystery, and greatness for as long as Mark Calloway did. Because The Undertaker was never just a gimmick, he was fear, he was loyalty, he was leadership, he was legacy. And in the history of professional wrestling, there will never be another quite like the Phenom. Rest in peace. Welcome to Headlocks, Heels, and Havoc, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. I know that was very long winded, but it was very well needed. I am one half of the greatest tag team in podcasting, the legend J Mac. With me, as always, is everybody's favorite uncle and my favorite tag team partner, Uncle Slam.
What's up, family? And yes, it was a little bit long. I ain't gonna lie.
Hey, but it was well needed. And with us tonight, what's up? What's up?
What's up? What's
Love
up?
you, dear. We got the bad guy JD from Mayhem Media joining us again to talk some Undertaker. How you doing?
Hey, yo.
All righty. Now that I got my breath again and everything, the Undertaker, man, let's go back and let's just start, from the beginning. Like they said, grew up in Texas, so it was just natural that he kind of started out down there in the Texas territories, under names like Texas Red and the Punisher and everything. Did you all ever get the chance to see him when he was like in those younger days and everything?
I saw Mark
No.
Calloway wrestle in WCW
Yeah.
on WCW TV once or twice.
See, I seen that, and that was where I, realized he was Mark Calloway, and then he went to be the Undertaker. I did not realize, because I had seen him earlier and I don't want to know, I can't guess how much earlier, maybe 2 or 3 years or something like that. I can't remember. I seen some kind of wrestling, and I want to say it was WCCW. And I seen a masked guy named Texas Red. And I was like, I didn't know that was Undertaker, you know what I'm saying? But I may have that all screwed up and everything, but I remember Texas Red and seeing a match with him and everything. So that was like the first time I remember the Undertaker, but I didn't know it was the Undertaker. But like you all, it was that, skyscraper. Now, did you all know him as the singles Mean Mark Callis? Because that's what he was in WCW. Or did you know him when he started out as the skyscraper tag team?
I did not know him as the Skyscraper tag team. I think that was just a little bit before I had gotten into wrestling, because I was very young at that point, because you're talking way, way back.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was like 87, 88.
Yeah, I was like 4 or 5 then. So at that time, I'll be honest with you, even when I go back and watch it, because I remember having the thought when I go back.
I was 6 when Hogan won the title, and I was flipping my mind. What? Huh? No, I'm just joking.
So was I. I was, and I was only days old at the time. I'm just kidding. So no, I remember looking at him honestly, and the first time I saw him, I think it was on a Saturday night actually, and I think when he was introduced, I remember thinking, this guy's a jobber. I mean, I was a kid then. I didn't even know what I was talking about, but he didn't look like somebody who was going to be like a regular or someone who's going to be a star. He wasn't flashy. They didn't put a bunch of flash on him or anything. So, and then when you actually get to see him wrestle, you realize that he's not just, he actually can wrestle. So that's what I remember about the first time I saw him as not the Undertaker, was seeing him on a Saturday night and thinking, oh, this guy's just a jobber. And then him putting on a very good match. I honestly don't even recall if he won or lost that match. I just remember it being, oh, this guy's a jobber. And then being like, whoa, this is a good match. Like, I just remembered that whole thought process. So,
okay, so that's why you would have thought he was a jobber, because you didn't see him as a skyscraper member. I get that. Exactly. I get that.
Yeah.
What about you, Uncle Slam?
I don't I remember a little bit of him in WCW, not much. My best memories, probably one of my first, is probably seeing him on like a Saturday night main event with Paul Bearer. That's when I really remember him. Like I said, I've seen old clips in the past and kind of looked familiar, but my main memories growing up would probably have to be him as the Undertaker or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like in WWF at the time. Um, but like I said, I mean that was probably one of my first memories about wrestling was the Undertaker. Like I just remember him being, because I was a kid, I was probably like 5 or 6, being like scared and terrified because there was nobody like him. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there was other guys that were heels, but they didn't have the dark side. They wouldn't mess with the dead, and he was carrying an urn and all that. So I would probably say, yeah, Saturday Night's Main Event was my first introduction to the Undertaker.
What what I like I my first introduction to the Undertaker himself was, of course, the Survivor Series. Um now and the $1 million team, of course. My first real introduction to Mark Calloway, or Mean Mark Callis, better know. Well, just some simple facts about him, just a little bit. Of course, like I said, he was born in Texas. Before wrestling, he played a lot of basketball in high school and college. He attended Waltrip High School. Briefly attended Angelina College on a basketball scholarship. Later attended Texas Wesleyan University. Sports management. Debuted in 1987 under the name Texas Red. Before WWE, of course, he wrestled in WCW as Mean Mark Callis, and that's where I was really introduced to him as like a mainstay. Because, like I said, of course, what was I saying? The skyscrapers, because I can't, but that's where I get it confused. I cannot remember if they replaced him with Vicious, or if they replaced Vicious with him.
I think Vicious got hurt and it was him and Dangerous Dan Spivey or something like
I'm
that, wasn't
pretty
it?
sure it was something to that effect. I know one of them got hurt or injured, and it may even been that they pulling Vicious into the Four Horsemen or something. I cannot remember, to be honest with you. So I don't want to lie to anybody, but I know it worked that way somehow. Uncle
Yeah.
Sam is probably right with what he's saying.
I'm pretty sure that it is Sid that got hurt, and then it was him and Dan Spivey or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I knew Spivey was the mainstay in that.
Mm.
I just couldn't, because, like, yeah, there's always that match where I can't remember who it was, but that jobber didn't want a job for Spivey and Sid Vicious. Look it up. It's hilarious, man. They slung that dude all night long. They did, dude. It was hilarious. He didn't want to, like, they would flip him and everything. He'd hit the ground and wouldn't sell. He'd get right back up and everything. And then they'd just sit there and, man, they like mauled him, man. Like, they was like, no. But yeah, so that's whenever I remember him coming in and everything. But then my big interest in him was when him and Lex Luger got into it. And I'm sure this is probably where JD probably really got introduced to him, is when him, thank you, Tucker, for watching. Superfly Johnny Lee said Undertaker was introduced to me after Survivor Series about 1991. If you're talking about the $1 million Survivor Series, then that was 1990. But yeah, that was me too. Thank you, Tucker, for being here. Love you. Everybody, appreciate y'all. Go like, share, follow, subscribe. To everybody watching and tuning in, we appreciate you all. But Luger and him fighting over the U.S. title was where I first remember it. And if I'm not mistaken, it was Great American Bash. He lost the U.S. title to Luger. Or I can't remember if he had it. Man, it's been so long ago. Lord God. Where's the wrestling encyclopedia when you need him?
I know he would know this.
But I know it was whatever pay-per-view Luger won against Mean Mark Callis for the U.S. title. I want to say it was the Great American Bash. The very next pay-per-view was a WWE pay-per-view, and that was Survivor Series. And he debuted as The Undertaker there.
Yeah. Yep.
But here's the thing. This is why I don't like WWE sometimes. I remember I was there, I watched it live. And because this was so many years before the internet, and I'll be honest with you, I chased this information down for years and could not find it. But when he came out at Survivor Series, WWE has went back and they've edited the footage. But when he came out at that Survivor Series, they introduced him as Kane the Undertaker.
Yeah, that's true and stuff.
I didn't know that.
And like they'll even admit it, but like they quickly took it off or whatever.
Yeah.
What do you say, Mr. Paletto? How are you doing, Mr. JJ? Tucker, yeah, I don't know about that, man. But yeah, guys, and that's the thing. That's honestly and truthfully, we'll get into that later once we get into that part of his career and everything. But that's one of the reasons why I never liked the Kane gimmick. I love Glenn Jacobs. Think he's a great wrestler. I didn't like Kane, but we'll get into that later.
I thought you were going to talk about the whole Oli saying that he would never about people would never going to pay to watch him wrestle.
I was getting ready to touch on that. Okay. Yeah, but go ahead. You brought it up. Go ahead.
No, it's I think it was right after the whole Luger thing. He was I think Paulie Dangerously was his manager and stuff, and he was trying to like renegotiate his contract, and they just gave him basically the same contract they'd already had, and he was like, trying to say, hey, I want some more money. And Ole Anderson just told him, he's like, you're a great athlete and all that, but nobody's ever going to pay to watch you wrestle and shit. And even though Paulie Dangerously was under contract with WCW, he was secretly talking to WWF behind their back. And as soon as that happened, he ended up talking to, it might have been Bruce Pritchard or Vince McMahon, and then he got a meeting for him to go talk to Vince McMahon and shit. And then it was supposed to be like a 30-minute meeting, lasted 4 hours. Vince loved him, and the rest is history.
Yep. It's crazy how and see, that's the thing about WCW, man. And I think that's the biggest problem WCW ever had. And I don't want to get off on a tangent and make this about WCW, but it just speaks to why they just never could ever seem to get really, even in the best days of the NWO, they never seemed to be able to just get over that hump. And the reason that they couldn't is because they just never recognized new young talent. Look how many people they let go through the door.
I would absolutely agree with that with WCW. I think in order to make it in WCW, you had to get over before you were pushed somehow. But you also had to do it within the very narrow confines of what they wanted you to do.
Yeah.
So it's like, here, you have this gimmick. If you don't get it over, then you're not going to be pushed.
You're the destroyer.
Yeah, like they didn't put money into people to get them over or give them great matches to get them over. They kind of just gave them a gimmick and said, go get over, and then you'll get rewarded for it.
Yep.
Like the burden was more on the wrestlers, I think, in WCW than it is necessarily in WWE, at least at that time. So yeah, I would completely agree with that. WCW past Jericho is one of the big ones that stick out. Like you said, you don't want to get off on a tangent, but just you talk about Mark Calloway being the Undertaker. That's just the tip of the iceberg. In that iceberg is also Jericho, who was arguably at the height and could have started going after the WCW World Title when they decided they didn't want him anymore. And WWE scooped him up, and look how his career went now. You know what I mean? He's had a great career since leaving WCW.
Yeah.
And they just don't know how to develop in WCW. I mean, that was their whole weakness. It was like they hung on to too many old wrestlers and didn't want to develop any of the young guys. And that's why like a lot of them left to go to WWF, like what the Renegades, Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko, who else? I think there was like 3 or 4 others. I mean, that right there just shows you that they were just terrible about developing talent. They would never let the young guys shine.
Yes, absolutely. They, especially someone like Chris Benoit, who wasn't really in the cruiserweight division, but then wasn't really in the world title division. You know what I mean? They never ever put any belts on him.
Hmm.
maybe once or twice, but and then at the end, that's when he ended up jumping ship, and I don't blame him for that. I mean, he was held down his whole career at that place, so they did it with a lot of people. I'm not going to deny that, even though I'm a WCW fan. It was more about the product they put on, but their backstage shenanigans was 100% one of the reasons that they, have ended up folding and falling through, because like J Mac is saying, it's except for Goldberg, they weren't really able to develop other talent. And I know Bischoff said, he's like, oh, well, I would argue, that Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, that was a different gimmick. And I'm like, yeah, except that they're real names and everybody knew that they were Diesel and Razor. And now they're just Kevin Nash and Scott Hall. You didn't have to get them over. I mean, I don't remember who they claimed. Was it Dusty? So I don't remember who they claimed gave him the credit and nicknamed him the Outsiders. It might have even been Arn Anderson, actually, now that I think about it. Arn Anderson's, it was really early when they were
No, it
still
was. I think you were right. It was Dusty.
Dusty. It was
Yeah,
either
I'm
Dusty
pretty
or
sure.
Arn, I think. Or no, I'm not. Are you sure? Because from what I understand, it happened during a promo. I thought Arn
Give me a
Anderson was
second,
like,
and I
these
will ask.
outsiders coming in here. Like he branded them as the Outsiders, and then they ended up taking that name. So like they were, yes, the Outsiders thing, but they were still Diesel and Razor, right? Like it's not like they had to get over. They were already over with the crowd.
Yeah.
The crowd knew who they were. So yeah, except for Goldberg, really is really the only thing WCW ever had. But there's a whole list of failures in the other column.
Let's see. Just to have factual stuff. Let's see. The name Outsiders actually created in WCW commentary and storyline presentation during the early days of NWO Angle in 1996 when Scott Hall first invaded WCW. He famously referred to himself as from up north, teasing a WWE connection without directly saying it. Soon after Kevin Nash arrived, WCW announcers, but who actually coined it? The actual branding team name, the Outsiders, became attached to Hall and Nash shortly after the formation of the New World Order. Eric Bischoff and WCW creatively, well, we know that.
Yeah.
Thanks
I
for
don't know that you're going to get that from AI, man. Like that's something like that. I remember reading that in an article or hearing it from one of those.
It was on commentary, and I want to say if I'm
might be
not
right though. Now that you said that,
it was Dusty on commentary.
If it was on commentary, I will definitely concede that it was Dusty. I will definitely, and now that you say that, you might even be right about that. I'm not entirely sure that it was Arn during a promo or something. It might have been Dusty on commentary. You might be right about that.
And we may be even giving it to somebody else. If anybody knows the answer to this question, please let us know. Put it in the comments. Let's talk. Correct us, please. We love to be corrected, and we just like to have a good show, but we want to tell the truth.
Yeah,
present a good show.
The Undertaker. Hey, I got to mind
yes.
if I help us get back on track here. I can go over some of his WWE stats if you'd like.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. He's a 4-time WWF WWE champion, a 3-time world champion, which really ultimately makes him a 7-time champion.
Really?
He was actually a hardcore champion.
Hold on. Stop right there. Really? Okay. 7?
If you count the 4 WWF championships and the 3 WCW world title runs, that's
see, guys, and this is why you don't ever go off of what you think is just, and this is to everybody out there. This is why you don't ever just go off what you think you know. Even when you're as knowledgeable as you think you are, go do some studying, because I would have sworn that Undertaker was only like a 5-time champion. And I know that's only a difference of 2, but that's a big difference in, wrestling championships, because I did not know he was up towards 7. I would have never said 7.
Yeah. With the 4 WWF WWE champion. I mean, you are partly right. He's only a 4-time WWF WWE champion. But if you count the World Heavyweight Championship, once the WCW got bought and they merged, he ended up holding that 3 times.
Yeah.
I mean, I believe you, but that's just crazy. Yeah, I would have never, like, honestly and truthfully, I just never, I just don't remember him having the world title that much.
I don't know how long in the reign
He
before
did.
for.
before the merge.
I'll
I
take a
was
look.
thinking he only did like the see. This is what I was thinking. I was thinking like WWF, like we're talking like Winged Eagle era because that was his era. So
Yeah,
I was thinking he held that belt like 3 times,
yeah,
and then after the merger, I was thinking he only. I knew he held the big gold belt, but I thought he only held that like 2 times, which would have made it like 5 times
yeah,
in
yeah,
total. I would have. I promise, if we was doing trivia, I would have. I would have never guessed 7 if that was multiple choice.
yep. Seven
That's
times.
crazy.
Yep. He was also a hardcore champion. He held that belt one time. And this is an interesting stat, and this is something a lot of wrestlers can't do. There's only a few of them that can. He was the WWF World Tag Team Champion 6 times with 4 different partners.
That's
And
crazy.
that's not something that a lot of people have done before. He was tag team champions with Stone Cold Steve Austin once, The Big Show on 2 different occasions, The Rock one time, and Kane on 2 different occasions. And him and Kane were also the WCW tag team champions one time. So he's actually got 7 world tag team title reigns as well as his 7 regular world title reigns.
Now that I could believe a little bit more. Give me just 1 second. Mr. Paletto, he said when WWE and WCW merged is not when the 2 championships happened. Was it? I thought it was a few years later. He was
Yeah.
never he was never actually WCW champion. He was the World Heavyweight Championship
Yes.
champion.
Yes. It was after they dissolved the storyline.
Yeah, it was after they just killed WCW off.
Yeah, but
Alrighty.
they kept the big gold belt and called it the World Heavyweight Championship because the WWE title has always been the WWE Championship.
Right. So, okay, so let me ask you all this, and we'll start with Uncle Slam. What do you think was the single greatest reinvention in Mark Calloway's career, and why did it work so well?
Um, I guess it'd have to be the American Badass. I mean, like you're talking about reinvent because he was the Undertaker for so long. You know, Undertaker, the Dead Man. Of course, he did the corporate ministry, and then there was another one. Was it the Prince of Darkness or some shit like that?
That was one of the better ones when he ran the
Uh,
ministry.
yeah, when he came down from the ceiling or whatever, and he looked like he had bat wings or
Well, there
whatever
was
on.
the first one that was the zombie, like zombie Undertaker,
Yeah.
and the first one. And then he went to more the ministry type, because he went into that in between mode there. So he was going into that ministry type Undertaker, and then his American Badass, and then he kind of went into that hybrid between the American Badass and the old Undertaker.
That's probably what I would say. I'd say the hybrid at the end. I wasn't a fan of the American Badass thing, but I think he still got it over. Whether I liked it or not, it didn't matter. Certainly, the people loved it. But I'd say the way he then became like the Dead Man, but not really the Dead Man, right? Like we all knew that who the Undertaker was at that point. So
Yeah.
I think I like the way he ended his career with just being just the Undertaker, no stable, no dark ministry. I think that was a way to send him off. My personal favorite, though, I mean, I love the ministry when he built the ministry and had this super stable, and the acolytes, and then Edge and Christian and Gangrel were the Druids. Like when he had the whole big crew, I was a huge fan of that storyline right up until they made Vince McMahon the guy
The
pulling
leader,
the string.
yeah.
And then I was so turned off by it. Like they almost had me turned over. That's the one storyline that almost pulled me from WCW was the Dark Ministry. Like I was so interested in what was the Undertaker and the dark part of everything he was doing. I was so interested in that right up until Vince McMahon became the dude pulling the strings.
So like, which one? You said you like the American Badass, right?
Yeah, because like I mean, like if I'm answering your question, you talk about like reinventing yourself and why did it work? To me, like I said, I would probably say if going from the Undertaker, the actual Undertaker, and then becoming American Badass seemed like a bigger switch. It was more of a stretch
Yeah.
than going from that to the like say the Ministry because they're both kind of dark, magical characters. Like
Yeah.
American Badass was more human. It was more down to earth. It was more
More
believable.
reality based.
Yeah.
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 So that was kind of a leap, and for people to still kind of jump on it, you know, said a lot about how they really loved him and shit. So, or still rock with him or whatever. So,
Well, it was believable too because you could be a biker with the name The Undertaker.
yes, yeah,
You know what I'm saying? And that's kind
It
of
fit
what
his,
it was.
yeah, it fit his
You know,
persona.
oh yeah. You know
Yeah,
what always I tell you and I don't know, tell me if I'm wrong and everything, but to me, and I'm not saying this is my favorite, but just comparatively, the last, little bit of the Undertaker, that kind of hybrid between the dead man and the American Badass and everything, where he wore the long black trench coat, did the hat and everything, but when he took it out, if he still had the gloves on and the leather pants, stuff like that and everything.
yeah.
Did you get kind of like a the best way I know how to describe it is like a Samuel L. Jackson, not Samuel L. Jackson. What's the dude's name? I love him. Mustache, Coors beer, Sam Elliott. Did you get a Sam Elliott Ghost Rider feel?
Um, that's interesting.
The Western.
That's interesting. I
That's the best way I could compare that. You know what I'm saying? Because
Mm,
he was a
I don't know.
cowboy, but he wasn't. He was like a dead man cowboy.
I think
He didn't come out with flames or nothing like that, but it was kind of like a play on it, I feel like. And I liked it. That's why I thought it worked pretty good because it came out right around that time.
I think if he hadn't have built what he had up until that point, I don't think it works. So I think that's why the end of his character did work because he evolved it himself all the way
Right, but
from the
I'm
dead
saying,
man to the biker.
do you see a Ghost Rider vibe to
I don't
that?
know
That
if I
Sam Elliott Ghost Rider, not motorcycle Ghost Rider.
maybe a little bit, maybe a little bit. It's certainly I can see how you can see that. Absolutely. I can see that from like a visual standpoint. He did kind of have that kind of outlaw feel, but outlaw who is running the show kind of feel. Like that's kind of what I got from him too. So
Yeah.
yeah, I could agree with
I'm
a
not
little
saying it
bit
was
with
a
that.
full Ghost Rider thing, but I'm
No, but
saying like it
it is
was,
close.
yeah, it was
No, you're
like a
right. I mean,
partial.
yeah, it is close though. Now that I think about it, because the makeup, he still cut the dead man makeup under his eyes, and I mean, I'm sorry, but especially at the end of his career, I don't know about you guys, but didn't the stare get more serious at the end of his career after the biker when he would
Yeah,
just sit up and look, just look over at the person?
Dude, my
And
favorite one is whenever he stood when him and Brock, I think, were in the ring. No, it wasn't Brock. Who was it? When he stood up and looked at him and just done the big like eyes and just laughed at him and
that was
everything.
Brock.
Yeah, that was crazy. I was laughing.
But like
I
I
don't
think
think that
that
was
was
Brock.
yeah, it was Brock. But I think that did. I think that's why it worked for him. And you're right. I think the Ghost Rider analogy does have weight there. Yeah.
I don't know. I
Uncle
think you
Slam.
kind of lost me on that one or whatever. I'm just not getting the reference. I mean, maybe I am.
Okay, okay. I mean, I
Yeah.
just, it was just a question because I've always wondered that.
Okay.
But no, going back to it, I guess my favorite transformation, I got to agree with Uncle Slam, is probably the American Badass. When he flipped the switch and went to that was pretty cool. It was one of my favorite things. But all right, let me ask you this: what do you think is the Undertaker's greatest rivalry? Do you think it's Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Kane, Mick Foley, or maybe somebody else? Start off with you, Uncle Slam.
Um, I want to say Mankind and the Undertaker just because probably the Hell in a Cell, and I think. But if you're going to be on, I mean, like if I got to be honest, and I hate to even say this because I'm going to say it, it would have to be Shawn Michaels and the Undertaker. They, they were the two constants. They were like light and dark. and their match in WrestleMania 25. I mean, even the Undertaker said it was probably his best match ever and shit. And I even rewatched the shit today, and I can see why. Because when you look at some of the shit that happened during that match, the Undertaker jumping, out of the ring, or Shawn Michaels trying to do a backflip out of the fucking ring, or the Undertaker catching Shawn doing a flip and then tombstone him and shit. Um, and they had a couple, and then there's a ladder match. Of course, the Hell in the Cell match. Uh, they've had so many classics and shit. So, and I'm not even a Shawn Michaels fan, and I have to give them props on that shit. Like they had some hell of matches and shit. So yeah.
And people forget because people always go to those WrestleMania matches, those 2
Mhm.
WrestleMania matches, but people forget they had the first Hell in a Cell match.
Yeah, they did.
And that was a barn burner. You know what I'm saying? There were they had so many great matches at the in the first part of Sean's career. You know what I'm saying? Besides that second part, you know what I mean? So it was like, you don't just go off that WWE or WrestleMania, the last 2 WrestleManias that they did. Go back and watch that other stuff. And I hate to say it because I would either put it with Sean or Foley, and just being completely objective. And it was just because if you want quality of matches, and I'm not saying that Foley's quality of matches aren't good, but Foley does what Foley can do, with the limitations of what he has, you know what I'm saying, against what Sean can do. And, Foley would admit that himself. But so quality of matches, Sean and Undertaker's are probably better. But like for moments, the Undertaker and Mick have so many. You know what I mean? Because it was just the crazy thing about that was when he came in, he was the first character that was a dark character that felt like he could step up to the Undertaker, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that wasn't Kane or somebody as huge as him and shit.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was there before Kane.
Was he?
Yes. Yeah. Yes,
Yeah, that's
sir.
what I would. That's what I would say to J Mac. That would be my answer. If the question was who did Undertaker have the better matches with, then you probably would have to say Shawn Michaels. But if you're talking about who put on the better story, then you have to go with Undertaker and Mankind, because that was the Undertaker's first real challenge. Shawn Michaels, and Undertaker went back and forth, and Shawn Michaels, sure, beat the Undertaker. But the thing is, Undertaker always got up and, would chase Shawn out of the ring. Like Shawn would not get to just stay in the ring and celebrate usually. The Undertaker has the Undertaker. Mankind was the first one that really was able to answer back on that kind of level with the Undertaker. That's why I think it was a better story with Mankind. And I would say Mankind specifically, not Mick Foley, not Cactus Jack or Dude Love, but his run with Mankind is what I think the better story is.
See, I can see why you would say that, but I feel like there was more emotion with the Undertaker and Shawn. Like watching their matches, I felt more like I was more involved in it. Like if something happened, I was more like, oh my god, or oh fuck, or it's just really the end type deal. With Foley and Undertaker, or I mean, uh, Mankind, I felt it was just more like what's going to happen. It was more suspenseful, or I can't believe this is happening. I don't know. I almost felt more invested with the Shawn and the Undertaker just
I
because
would.
it felt more emotional to me. But that's just me, like I said.
I agree.
My argument with that would be that I mean, I get what you're saying, because Shawn Michaels overcoming the dead man, you can get more invested in that. But for me at least, the fact that someone was able to challenge the Undertaker in like the dark mysticism and get the upper hand. I mean, the Boiler Room matches. I
Oh,
mean that
yeah.
I mean that's why. I mean, just he would hunt the Undertaker. Whoever
Yeah, yeah.
ever hunted
Nobody
the
ever did.
Undertaker.
Yeah, like nobody took it to the Undertaker like that. Nobody.
Yeah, that's
No,
why I choose them as the better story,
Okay.
just because of that. Because I
So
think it was
so I have a
mankind fighting
question for
back.
you all, and we're going to do a side note here real quick. We're going to get off the Undertaker for just a slight second because I'm going to ask another question because y'all just made me think of it. So I love the Mick Foley goof off character. I love, limping ain't easy when he tore his ACL and he's out there trying to, do matches and shit and everything. And he steals the Godfather's line, pimping ain't easy, and says limping. It's great. You know what I'm saying? He was a Kurt Angle of his day. But let me ask you this. What if he had stayed a more serious, dark character? And what if he would have, instead of going the comedy route, stayed the mystic route or whatever you want to call it, mystic, whatever, and kept that kind of a rivalry with Kane around. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know who you want to go first. I would say no. I would say he had to because he wasn't able to do the things he was able to do at that time. Once he got older, he wasn't able to still do the stuff because of what
I
he
agree.
did.
Yeah.
So I think a serious character wouldn't have suited him well. And also, I would say that the kind of dark character in wrestling was really kind of phasing out at that point. While I've always kind of been a fan of, and the cool tricks that they put on in the arenas and stuff for the Undertaker or the Sting or whatever, right? I've always been a fan of that, but it was losing its edge at that time. Like Undertaker was no longer, they had played the ministry angle out when Mick Foley was just Mick Foley when he had the car crash at the beginning of his theme music. And he just came down in the suit and tie, and he wasn't Mankind. He wasn't dude. He was just Mick Foley at that time. And at that time, Undertaker was already, like you said, the American badass. The dark kind of character was kind of fizzling out of the mainstream of wrestling. So I don't think it would have worked for him any other way. I think he had to adapt to the comedy side. I think it worked in his favor.
Uncle Slam.
And this kind of goes back to where we're talking about the Undertaker. I think what kind of answer your question is like very few people can do what the Undertaker did when it comes to say like Mick, like be a dark character for say that long. I don't think Mick could have done it. I think kind of what makes the Undertaker special is that he was able to be a dark character for so long, and people still like it, people still believe it. I don't think Foley could have done it like that. I think what made him kind of special was that he was able to switch to Cactus Jack. He was able to go to Do Love and always get over no matter which character that it was. But I don't think he could have stayed as a dark character and people continued to like him. Like I think it would have got boring. I think it would have got played out. Unlike say somebody like the Undertaker who could for 30 plus years be a bad guy. I mean not a bad guy, but a dark character and people still love it.
Andrew Paletto answered. He said, best match was Hell in a Cell with Triple H. End of an era match.
I would not pick that as my favorite Hell in a Cell match, but that sounds like another episode for you to plan, J Mac. Best
JD,
favorite Hell in a
you
Cell
hear
match?
this? JD hears the slightest little bit of disagreement. He's like, we should have an episode about that.
Why have the argument unless we're going to get content out of it, right?
Coke versus Pepsi. We should have an episode about that.
Oh man, I mean, if you want to do a 45-second episode, I guess.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. All righty. So let me ask you this. Did the Undertaker's character, you think, succeed more because of more the supernatural part of it, or because of the Undertaker? Well, not the Undertaker, but Mark Calloway's commitment to making people believe it was real and protecting the gimmick. Andrew said Mountain Dew.
Dr. Pepper.
Oh, that's hilarious. He said Mountain Dew. Doom. But yeah, so do you think it was more his willingness to protect the gimmick and make people believe it was real, or just the supernatural part of it itself that got it over? Uncle Sam, we'll let you. Oh no, we let JD, you go first on this one.
I think at the beginning it was this weird character. I think that's what got him over because it was also before the Undertaker. Was there a really dark character that didn't that was imposing as the Undertaker, who had the whole look down? I mean, if the Undertaker, Mark Calloway, and the Undertaker were the perfect gimmick for the perfect guy at the exact perfect time. That's why it worked so well. The beginning of it was the interesting. Who is this Undertaker? Holy cow! He just beat Hulkamania. Like it's that's what built him up, was this kind of intrigue about him. And
Oh, you
then
got me, brother.
yeah, and then when he went to the Dark Ministry character, I think people bought it because they believed in the Undertaker's power. Like they saw the power grow from all this time, and people just bought in that the Undertaker was just this powerful being who now had a ministry underneath him, and he was just going to take over. I think that had a huge payoff if they would have went a different way than they did. And then I think when he goes to the badass, I think that's the first time that he reinvented who he was, as you said, not being the dead man, not being the Undertaker, but being the biker Undertaker. That's a complete 180 from what you do, while still being able to keep. And I think that's where it is. When he was the biker and still able to do the Undertaker sit up, and look at his opponent, and people bought that. People were like, yes, he still can do that. Even though he's a biker, he's still the Undertaker.
Right.
I think that's what made people realize that he had transcended just being this dark character, that people buy into, that the Undertaker is now capable of being, whatever he wants to be, while retaining his abilities from his past gimmicks.
Uncle Slam.
Now, like, what's the question one more time?
Talk too long, Slam?
Well, I might have lost a little. Like, he asked the question.
He said, to be honest, man, I kind of dozed off right there.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Disconnect there, short circuit.
JD, why do you think we wear the glasses, man? So we can sit there and take a nap real quick.
Yeah. Uncle Slim's not even sure what question we're on. That's why he needed the question repeated.
So I said, did the Undertaker succeed more? It was the success of his character because of the supernatural part of it, or was it just his overall willingness to protect every bit of the gimmick?
I would probably say the kayfabe part of it, because like he was one of those guys, you never saw him out with, one of his rivals. Like even if you saw him out, he was, always in black. He kept talked real slow and quiet, always hit up the stairs and stuff. Like he stayed in character a lot. Like very few people besides the wrestlers that knew him, ever saw him not in character, and like even if you did see him out, and then he still, still had that, okay, like it's the Undertaker, type deal. So I think it was more or less him just sticking to the kayfabe. Plus, I'm pretty sure Vince had kind of banned them from going out to like strip clubs so that people wouldn't see them together and stuff like that. But yeah, I truly believe it was because he stayed in character almost 24/7. I mean, he didn't stay in character, but there was no internet at the time. There was nobody to give away, So back then it was like you just knew what you saw of them. You know what I'm saying? Like you had to take what you got from TV and stuff like that. There was no
superstars.
Internet. Yeah. So to me, it was the kayfabe.
Okay. Yeah, I think, for all their faults, and I'm not saying that Mark or Mr. Calloway, the Undertaker, had any faults or anything. I'm sure he did and everything, but I'm not calling anybody out. I'm just saying everybody, does whatever they do when they're on the road and stuff. And, people get tangled up in stuff. Everybody does, whether little or big or whatever. And that's their business. But like, you never heard of him getting into like any major issues he was a true locker room leader, especially now that, they're going into his career a lot more with, him being retired. And I think just for me, it's kind of a mixture of both and all of it all in one. And I'll tell you that there's one other person that looking into wrestling, and this is not a smack in the face to anybody else, but there's one other person that reminds me of this, and I'm going to put these two, and I'm not saying they're greater than Hulk or Flair or anything like that. I'm just saying they're in a league of their own because of this. But these two men, and I'm talking about the Undertaker, Mark Calloway, and Harley Race, just because of their complete career and everything, have the one thing from every wrestler, and that's respect. World championships didn't matter. Bullshit didn't matter. You know what I'm saying? It was just about, let's go out here and put on a good show. Let's squash this stupid shit. Let's not do stupid shit. Let's have a good time.
It was
You know
about
what
the
I'm
business.
Yes.
It was about the business for before anything. Like he would call out Vince, obviously, during the Shawn Michaels and the Bret Hart thing, he
Mhm.
wanted Bret to do business, and if Bret didn't do business, then he was gonna try to make sure that he was gonna do business. And then once Vince screwed him over, he told Vince he had to go apologize. And when Shawn wasn't going to do business, he was going to make sure Shawn was going to do business and shit.
Had them
So
fist tape.
exactly, like he wasn't afraid to stand up and be like, "This is what we need. This is what's best for business." So like that's what got him a lot of respect because he was, he call out anybody and shit. And I think for the most part, he was pretty fair about shit.
I agree with that. JD, you agree with that? That Undertaker was probably one of the most fair wrestlers, and do you think that that's why they had him as the what was it, the wrestler court judge?
Yeah,
I think he likely earned that because he was big enough from most people at that back in the day. He was big enough to stand up to any bullies. And I think he probably made pretty clear what was allowed to be happen and what wasn't allowed to be happening. And I think eventually over time, yeah, the wrestlers put like when there was a thing, they would take it to the Undertaker. Is this okay? I think that's how it likely evolved. That because he just laid down the law on what was allowed and what wasn't allowed with himself, and then people kind of just adopted that. Like, hey, that's a good policy. Let's have that policy. And then Taker just eventually became the judge, which is crazy to me. It's crazy to me
I know wrestler
crazy
court.
to me that Vince isn't the judge. That's what I always found to be weird about that situation. Like,
Vince didn't have time to deal with that crap.
shit.
I know it's just, but
Vince
it's
would have been
crazy.
in court. What are you talking
Well,
about?
Vince
Vince
was
would have
in
been over there.
Vince was in real court. He didn't have time to do
Yeah,
wrestler
that's
court.
true. I don't have time for this shit. I'm a real court.
He
Yeah,
didn't have time for that shit.
So
I can only imagine. I wouldn't
I
want to
have
be in
to
Undertaker's court. I'm just saying.
I have to add one more person to that list that I just said with Harley and Undertaker, and that's Andre. Those three men, I feel like, just had complete respect in any locker room they were in.
It seemed like Andre is that type of person. I mean, if you talk about him, even the people who
You
worked
didn't have a
on that
choice,
movie,
even if he wasn't that type of person.
yeah,
No,
yeah. I mean, really, yeah. But even if you talk to the people who he was on the movie with, The Princess Bride, like all of his co-stars on that say how gentle, he's just big, gentle giant. Like everybody everywhere has said the same thing about Andre the Giant. So I think that's just honestly who Andre the Giant was. I don't think he ever had a mean bone in his body. It's amazing his size is why
watching
he was so
Tucker.
popular. That's what got him over his size. If he didn't have that size, he's too nice for wrestling. Let's be honest.
Oh yeah.
So, all right. What was my next question I wanted to ask you? Uncle Slam, what moment truly. Well, hold on. Do I want to ask that one first or do I want to ask that other one first? All right. Let's go with the other one first. All right. Uncle Slam, Brock Lesnar. Was he the right person to end the streak? Or do
See,
you
that's
think it was just more for the shock value of that moment?
I have a question quick. Was he the first person?
yes,
At WrestleMania, yes.
yeah,
Yeah, he was. Okay, it was Brock first.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Um, See, I was one of those people. I didn't want the streak to end. I wanted him to retire with the streak. Um, it kind of hurt like when the streak was over. I'm not even gonna lie. I guess you got to do what's best for business, and I kind of see where Vince was going with it. Personally, I don't like it because I like the streak. I like the Undertaker. I wanted it to be a record that nobody broke, that nobody would ever touch. So, in my opinion, I don't like it. I wish they had kept it, but I understand why they did it because it helped. Which, like I said, Brock was going to probably get over no matter what, but
Yeah.
that made him that bad guy. Like Paul Heyman said, he's the guy that broke the streak. He's the guy that stopped the Undertaker, and that's something that he can always carry with him no matter where he goes or his next challenger. And that's a belt he can hang on. You know what I'm saying? That's not a belt. So, like I said, I see why they did it. I didn't like it, like I said, just because I love the streak. So I'm probably the worst person to ask that question to.
Yeah, I think, what do you think, JD?
I think I agree with Uncle Slam. I don't think Brock needed the streak. I get that he's a beast, and you probably had to have that match. How does Brock and Undertaker's career progress without them meeting at WrestleMania? Right, like it that would have had to happen anyway. And honestly, I don't think that you can have Brock lose that match. So Brock was probably the right person to lose it. And I'm glad we're talking about the first loss because I was fine with one. I get it. It's a passing of the torch moment. You're saying Undertaker's saying, okay, this is the next big guy. This is the next guy. He defeated me at WrestleMania. Because I think Undertaker was really ultimately in charge of that streak. I don't know that Vince actually had control over that streak. So I do think Brock was the right guy, and I think it did have to happen. But I do agree with Uncle Slam. I didn't want to see it happen though. I would have much rather seen him retire with it undefeated. But how do you do that and it still be legit?
Yeah. And it's like if it wasn't Brock, then who would it have been at the time? Like who would have been believable to beat the Taker and the streak besides
Not
Brock at that
Goldberg.
time? Yeah, I mean, people were probably riding the street if Goldberg had beat fucking Undertaker.
Johnny Lee said respect is key always. And he also said no, he should have no, he shouldn't have. It should have stayed intact.
Yeah, that's what I think. But like I was saying, how do you not have Brock and the Undertaker meet at WrestleMania?
Even if you do, at that point, I don't think you had to have Brock beat the Undertaker. I think it could have just been a one off. Okay, so what? He didn't beat the Undertaker. That was the one notch in his saddle that he didn't get. You know what I mean? Who cares?
Who was
At
the
the
second
end,
loss to though?
Roman.
It was Roman?
And it took like
Yeah.
10 years for Roman to get the push that it took.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't 10 years, but it took two. You know what I'm saying? It just wasn't the immediate
No,
push.
I
it
was just
supposed
shocked it
to
was
be.
Roman that they
Yeah.
Yeah, they gave it to Roman because they needed him to be over.
Because remember, that's whenever he left the hat and stuff in the ring.
Yeah, that's the
But then he
difference.
came back. But then he came back and wrestled Goldberg, and Goldberg back killed him. Bill Goldberg.
Yeah,
But
yeah, that's a terrible dude.
That
I'm
got me
sorry,
saying
dude.
this shit now.
Listen, man, it's stupid. You're a football player. You know what head injuries do. So I don't care if the door is wood or not. Headbutting the door is just stupid. And then, of course, you run the risk when you actually headbutt a metal door. And then you concussed yourself before the biggest match of your career with the greatest superstar of all time in that company, and you almost kill him.
Yep.
After you concussed yourself the second time because you run yourself into the head post because you don't know how to miss your own spear in a safe manner.
well, not only that, when you're in WCW, you end a friggin' building storyline that's budding by slamming your arm into a limo window and lacerating your tendons in your arm to where you have to go have surgery and you're going to be out for 6 months.
I remember that too.
I would have
By
turned that
Get
off.
that
killing,
started.
hereby killing this great story that was actually
I don't think it
building
would.
at the
I think
time.
people overinflate that. I would
No,
rather
there's no
trying.
overinflating that. They needed that right then.
Yeah, you're
WCW
probably not
that
wrong. But
could
that's
have helped WCW stay alive, and that was the you. I don't care who you would have never seen. I don't care what people say about Hogan. I don't care what people say about Austin. I don't care what people say about anybody else. You would have never seen nobody, and I don't mean this as any bad thing, as meat headed as Bill Goldberg in that moment. He was not thinking clearly. He was like, I'm going to be the big bad superhero. Psh, psh, psh. Nope, it's not breaking. Psh, oh, there went my arm. Psh, oh, well, look, there. No, dumb. You dumb. Pick something up and break the window like everybody else would have done.
yeah,
You
yeah,
don't
yeah.
injure yourself. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not saying Bill Goldberg is dumb. I'm saying Bill
No, he is
Goldberg
dumb.
was being a meathead
No,
in that moment.
I'll
And
say
I
it.
think that
I'll say it. I'll
I,
say it.
he said, I'll say it.
Listen,
All right.
the two worst matches in wrestling history, both owned by Goldberg. Bill Goldberg versus Steven Regal. Okay, and then Bill Goldberg versus The Undertaker.
I mean,
Name a worse match than those two.
Bill Goldberg versus Brock both times wasn't very good. It was just spear, 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 jackhammer, jackhammer, jack. Oh, look, I got something else happen. Somebody hit a ring post. Oh, look, there may have been a German suplex or two.
Did
Suplex
Brock
City got shut down that night because we can't do that stuff.
did Brock
It's
win that match?
terrible, huh?
Did Brock win that match?
Well, I think they won and won.
What a terrible. Yeah, no, you're right. I could see that being like right there at number 3, maybe pushing for number 2.
All
Brock
right, so
and Goldberg as the worst match. So there he is. Goldberg's got the worst 3 matches in all of wrestling history.
Uncle Slam, what do you think is the worst Goldberg match? We're gonna go off on a little anecdote here.
I don't even know. Shit. I mean, you're probably asking the wrong person. I'm probably gonna say Bret Hart because he fucked my boy up. To be honest and shit.
Okay,
But
oh, go
but I
ahead.
did hear the William Regal, where Regal pretty much embarrassed him and shit, was probably
Mhm.
pretty terrible too.
He
Honestly.
exposed him.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna just go out on a limb here and say, if you want to see the worst Goldberg match, anybody who's watching this and anybody who does watch it in the future, go on to YouTube, type in Bill Goldberg, and whatever pops up, that's the worst match in that moment. And then when you close the app and you open it back up and you type in Bill Goldberg again, don't go to old playlists. Go to the next one down. And that'll be the worst one in that moment. There's no such thing as a good Bill Goldberg match.
Nope.
I'm sorry.
If you're out there watching right now, please share it with us so that we can laugh and point at it and point out how bad it is, because it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist.
If you want to watch a good wrestling match, go watch Davey Boy Smith versus Steven Regal in WCW, and that's a good wrestling match. But again, I digress. So, getting to my next question. So, what moment truly cemented The Undertaker as a legend? Was it his debut? Was it the first Hell in a Cell? Was it the streak, as we've been talking about, or something else completely and entirely? Start out with you this time, Uncle Slam.
What certified him as a legend?
What moment truly cemented The Undertaker as a legend? So, yeah, it's like, this is it. That's it. He's a legend. Boom. That did it.
No, it's kind of hard to say. I mean, he had lots of great moments. I mean, obviously, his debut was great. Uh, the matches with Shawn Michael, winning the first championship and shit. But I would honestly, like I said, every time I think of the Undertaker, I always think about him in Hell in a Cell with the Mick Foley shit. That right there just pops into my head pretty much every time I think of the Undertaker. It's one of my favorite matches. So after that, I was probably just like, God, I can't believe it. It's actually really happening. Sure, because I thought he killed Foley personally. And then to go back and find out later, like later on that he was, had a fucked up ankle and was climbing the Hell in the Cell and all the other shit
Yeah,
he had to
broken
go.
ankle.
Yeah, um, probably that one. Honestly, I mean, like I said, because that's always been one of my favorite Undertaker matches and shit. I mean, he had a lot of good ones, but that to me just kind of sticks in my head.
JD,
Yeah, I'd
what
say
moment?
I have to agree with Uncle Slam that I think it's the culmination of all his moments that make him a legend. But I think the one that, like, if you're saying, okay, now he's officially entered legend status, I think is what you're asking me. So I would say when he switched back from the American Badass to just the version one of the Undertaker, to the hat and the gloves, because now it was a different trench coat. J Mac, he did incorporate like the biker, like the whole biker style was still part of that.
Are you talking about when he had the bodysuit and he wasn't wearing the leather pants? Like when he kind of did the mohawk thing?
No, I'm talking about at the end when he went back to the hat and the whole Undertaker entrance, the old school music.
Yeah, but
When
he did like a whole bodysuit like type thing for like a
yeah,
couple of years on SmackDown. That was whenever I remember him. As a matter of fact, his the picture is on our intro because it's him with the belt, the big gold belt and everything. That's whenever he was wearing the bodysuit without the pants and everything.
yeah,
That's whenever I liked him after he went back.
yeah. I have to say when he went back to the Dead Man from the biker, and just with the trench coat, the hat, and went back to the old school kind of intro and stuff that he did. I think that was him entering legendary status because at that point he switched from a dead man to a biker, then a biker back to the version one of his dead man character, and the fans were still on their feet cheering and going crazy. I think that's the moment that everybody saw, okay, Undertaker can literally do whatever he wants to do, and the people are going to cheer him. I think when the crowd cheers you, no matter what you're doing, even when you're trying to be a bad guy and you're still getting cheers, that's one of those moments too that's reached you to legendary status.
I am going to agree that both of those. Did you answer Uncle Slam?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to, both of those are good answers, but I'm going to go back to even earlier. I think that if not, he hit legendary status, he absolutely stepped on the line of legendary status. And I think he did it very early in his WWE career when 1 year after his debut, he pinned Hulk Hogan for the World Heavyweight Championship. And he, you know, clean, unclean, wasn't his fault. He picked him up and done the tombstone. He didn't know Flair put that chair right there. You know what I'm saying? If you watch, Flair slides it in as he's picking him up. He ain't really looking down.
Oh yeah, I
You're
remember
about
that.
Hogan being hurt. He's just bitching.
He said, no. I'm just saying, I'm not even talking about the, oh, you got me, brother.
Yeah.
Go call Linda.
Oh, you dropped me. You dropped me.
Yeah.
Clearly your
You
head
got me,
didn't hit the
brother.
mat. No, he
Oh,
dropped
you
me.
got
He
me,
dropped
brother.
me, brother. He dropped me. No, clearly
I
we're
love
looking at the
Hulk,
video.
man. I
Your head
love.
didn't hit the mat, Terry.
You can't
your
I
help.
head didn't
You
know.
hit the
can't
mat.
help but he said I watched it later on, man. I was like, man, it's like 2-3 inches off the mat. But
Yep.
yeah,
My arm's hurting, brother.
and I always thought that the way, if you watch the way he done the tombstone with him, it was more protected than he done it with other people.
Are you? Of course it was.
But dude, it wasn't him holding by the waist. He had Hulk's arm hooked too.
You
And
could. You wouldn't have been
where
able
Hulk
to
was
drop
kind of
him
sideways.
he wouldn't have been able to drop him on his head the way
Yeah.
because of the way he underhooked his arm.
Yeah,
If
he
you
was,
go back
but
and look at the tape,
Hogan's body was kind of sideways. He was almost in a power slam. It was
Yeah.
almost like he was slid down a little bit from a power slam.
Yep.
Yeah, But anyways, that's beyond. But I then I think right then he became some sort of a legend because he was 1 year in. He's pinned Hulk Hogan. He's been the world champion. And even though they took it off of him quick, because they weren't sure, they just wanted to see what it would do and everything. And it was like, oh, because I'll be honest, at the time, all this stuff about Hulk hadn't come out. So he was still kind of the, WWF hero, but it was starting to get to the point to where the vitamins, prayers, and stuff was wearing thin a little bit, Warrior was right in there too and everything. But when he beat him, it was kind of like, this is not a guy I want around Hulk Hogan. Especially if Hulk's got the title, because I know he can take it from him and he can take it easy. How does Hulk hurt him? You know what I'm saying? And I think that alone put him into legendary status, because that alone right there, and I'm talking about Zombie, Survivor Series, the first year came, all that stuff, Undertaker was moved in because of that right there, moved into like Andre the Giant status. How do we hurt this guy? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There, nobody really said, oh, how it's like, man, King Kong Bundy's a massive man, but it was never, how do you hurt King Kong Bundy? How are you going to get past him? You know what I'm saying? There was never that around him. There was around the Undertaker, and it was that quick. That's just my opinion.
All right. Hold on a second. I mean, you're talking about matches. Like, how many matches, like, you think the Undertaker's had over his 30 years or whatever? Because I got couple little facts here. I'm sure.
I honestly and truthfully,
does anybody have a guess?
I would say at least 1,500.
JD?
I'm probably gonna go with. I'd probably go with a little higher than that. I'd probably go with about 1,800.
Okay. Now, they say right here, over 2,000 matches. It's between 2,195 to 2,400 matches over 3 decades. Because that counts house shows, televised shows, and dark matches.
And stuff they just don't have records about and stuff too. So it's got to be an estimated number between those things. But still, that's a lot.
Yeah, he's got a record 21 straight, WrestleMania, of course, final record's 25-2. He's had 60, he's competed in 65 casket matches. He's had, let's see, there were 17 plus, he's won 11. Hell in a Cell, 14 appearances, holds the record for the most. Buried Alive matches, 5. Body bag matches, 1. Last Ride matches, 2 versus JBL and Mr. Kennedy. Inferno matches, 2 versus Kane. Biker and Chain match versus Brock. A Pooja prison match versus The Big Show and The Great Khali. A Concrete Cryptid match and a Boneyard match.
Oh yeah, that was going to
like
say
that's just some of the matches that he's had. Like incredible, over 2,000 matches over 3 decades. Shit. No wonder his body, broken down and shit.
Mm-hmm.
And so, would it surprise you to learn that his longest world title reign is only 133 days?
No, I knew that.
But not even surprised, honestly. But he never needed the title to be relevant. Like he's the definition of a person that was always at WrestleMania, always in a storyline, and didn't need the title to be important or to steal the show and shit.
I would argue Sting is the equivalent of that, like his doppelganger.
Yes, for WCW.
Undertaker and Sting have always never needed the title. They've always just been over.
Yep.
I think Sting got to be like that. I think and I don't know how much it was more, and I don't want to get off on Sting. We should do a episode on Sting sometime, and I know JD wants to do that one.
You better not do that episode.
Well, Uncle Slam, when we do a Sting episode, We got to remember to forget to invite JD. For some reason, that invite button just will not work, man. What is wrong?
Don't make me blow
But
up the
no,
comments now.
right. Hey, that's all right. Blow them up, please. Please blow all of them up. But no, and I agree with Uncle Slam. I put him in that category as like a Rowdy Roddy Piper. He just never needed the title. The music hit and it was relevant. That's all that
Like
mattered. There's
Legion of
very
Doom.
few wrestlers like that. I'd even
The
say
Legion of Doom would
Hogan.
be another group that I would, or another set of people that I would put in that list. The Legion of Doom never needed the titles. Their music would hit and
Mhm.
people would be on their
Yep.
feet screaming.
Yep.
As far as a tag team, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a reason why it's called the Legion of Doom Pop, the Road Warrior Pop.
Yep.
So if the Undertaker had retired a little earlier in his career and stopped with the injuries and stuff and everything, and maybe kept maybe a year or two before the streak ended, and he retired with the streak, do you think that his legacy would be a little different today than what it already is, or was it already cemented to what it is even now, even what he did after? JD, go ahead.
I think people see the losses as back office shenanigans is what I think most people see as those two losses. I think most people just like to pretend that they're not even there. So I think him staying. I think maybe he should have retired maybe a little earlier than he did. But I think if he retired before Brock, no, I don't. I don't know if that would have hurt his career or hurt his legacy or would have protected it at that point. I really don't know. I personally would have liked to have seen him retire before he wrestled Goldberg. And Roman. Like I didn't want to see those matches. I think Brock would have honestly, there you go. You want to give Brock the record? The Undertaker retires. That's how it should have been. If Brock really wins that match, then the Undertaker should have retired. I think that's how it should have went. So I don't know if that answered your question or not. I don't think retiring him before that match, I don't think it protects it or does anything different.
No, I'm just saying, do you think so you don't think that even if he would have retired a few, say 4 or 5 years earlier, that he would still have the same legacy as he does?
I think so. I think the fact that he stayed maybe a little longer than he should have, I think people look at as like, his match with Goldberg, his match with Roman. Some of these are not great matches for him. In terms of his matches, they're arguably some of the worst matches. So I think, if anything, I think he was trying to hold on maybe a little too long. Yeah. So maybe a little bit earlier. Like I said, I think his match with Brock, I think if he'd have retired after that loss to Brock, I think that was probably the perfect time.
Yeah. Uncle Slam?
Um, See, it's kind of hard. Like I said, I don't
Do I need
think.
to repeat the question again? No, I'm just
No, no,
fucking
no,
with you.
no, no. I was like I said, I didn't short circuit that time. Um, I don't think it would have changed anything. I think his legacy is pretty much secure. I think I don't think the losses. People don't like him, but I don't think they look at him as like, oh my God, he lost and this and that. You know what I'm saying? Like he's a legend no matter what. I mean, like because you can't look at those two matches and then look at 2,000 other matches and say those two took it away from those other 2,000 plus matches that he's had. And when okay, he's already been put in the Hall of Fame, and like when you have the owner Vince McMahon putting you into the fucking Hall of Fame, crying like a baby and shit, and hugging you, that says that you're a legend right there in itself because he doesn't do that for just anybody. He, I don't think he's done that for anybody else.
I've
The
seen him cry
Undertaker
for
is the only
Hogan and
person.
Andre.
Yeah, I think those are the only two people like he ever, you know, treated like that. Now, of course, a lot of people say Vince was like a father to him and shit like that, and like even Taker will say that he was as close to him as his father. So I just don't see. To me, like it doesn't take away. Like I still see the Undertaker as I would. I kind of wish he maybe did retire a little bit earlier just to kind of preserve his body. Maybe come back a couple times here and there at a WrestleMania or whatever to win. But it doesn't change my opinion of him. I don't look at him less, because he hung on a little bit too long. Because a lot of great athletes, unfortunately, stay past their prime and maybe should have retired a little bit earlier or should have retired while they were on top. But
Ric
I
Flair.
don't hold it against them.
It's Ric Flair.
Yeah, Ric Flair, prime example.
I just wish Ric Flair would be quiet now. I love him, but just shh. I love him, but
I'm a huge fan of Ric Flair.
so what do you think about Undertaker, sir? You think his legacy would be, or did you already? You
Yeah,
didn't
I already
answer
answered.
Yeah.
It's your turn.
Yeah, okay.
Now who's slipping over here, legend?
Yeah,
I am,
yeah.
man. I am.
It's getting
Okay.
late.
So if the, I don't. Yes, I think maybe. I don't know. I kind of wish he would have retired. And again, like you all said, I wish he would have retired with the streak because that's something that wasn't a title. You didn't have to turn it over as you were, bowing out or anything like that. That's something he could have won at WrestleMania the last time, walked away, and been done. You know what I'm saying? He's the one guy who never lost at WrestleMania. Oh, that's his thing. But I think that whenever he decided to stay around for longer, it just kind of became a thing that had to happen. You know what I'm saying? Because eventually the torch has to get passed, as Brock Lesnar showed this past WrestleMania. It's sad. I really don't think it would have hurt. Like y'all said, the losses, nobody likes them. And I think it would have been better to have the streak. I don't know that it necessarily affects anything. So I guess overall, no, I don't think it really affects anything. If I, just from my opinion.
If I could, J-Mac, imagine.
No, you can't. No, I'm just joking.
Imagine if Brock beat The Undertaker, and that was Undertaker's last WrestleMania. It was his only defeat. Okay.
That would have been great.
And then all these years later, now, while Brock has lost matches, he hasn't lost as, very many. But now Brock passes the torch to Obafemi at WrestleMania. I think it would have made Brock's passing the torch to Obafemi that much more special had Undertaker's last match been a loss to Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania.
Can I be honest with you? As a rebuttal, I could see that, but here's what I think should happen. Brock's not just passing the torch to Obafemi, and I know they got to be careful about this. But if Obafemi turns out to be everything we think he may turn out to be, barring injury and just whatever, Obafemi gets the next streak because he passed that along to him too.
I don't know. Those big shoes to fill right there.
I know. But think about what they just gave him too. They just gave him Brock's spot.
I know.
So that's big shoes to fill too. That's what I'm saying. They got to be careful. And for the next couple of WrestleManias, if they set him up right to win, he don't necessarily have to win the world title. You know what I'm saying? He can win the U.S. title 1 year and then lose it after 6 months or whatever, then start going after the Intercontinental title. You know what I'm saying? Let's build him up.
I think it also should be story. Like the reason Undertaker got so many matches and was always undefeated at Mania, and is because he wasn't always the champion going into Mania.
Right.
So that's the whole, like, if you do it right, like as J-Mac just said, if he's not the champion and you don't need him to lose the belt at this pay-per-view, then just have him do stories and just make sure he's the one that comes out on top of most of these stories at Mania.
He's just rampaging through the roster and stuff. He pulls up the next streak. I think that could be something cool. All right. Last question before we get out of here, unless anybody else has got anything. So looking back now, as far as ranking, where does The Undertaker rank among the greatest performers in history? And what makes his So this is a two-part question. Where does he rank among greatest performers in history? And what makes his legacy unique compared to people like Flair and Stone Cold, Hulk Hogan, and so on and so forth, Stings, Sean's and stuff. Uncle or JD, we'll start with you. Yeah, like I said, two-part question.
Yeah, I think his legacy kind of I'm a proponent that the Undertaker and Sting have a very mirrored kind of career with their own individual companies, and I think that that's true. In terms of greatness and where he falls, um, that's a tough call. I don't know if I could pick exactly where he would fall, like in a list of names in terms of the greatest. But I will say that what gives him his place on that list certainly goes to his size, his abilities combined with his size, because nobody that size at that time is jumping over the top rope, after people. Undertaker was one of the first big guys to do high flying moves off the top rope and do them in a way that people liked and believed. So, um,
Okay, so let me ask you this: as far as ranking, since you said you would have a hard time, you don't know where you would be able to put him. Would you at least say that he is, and I'm not saying just as a wrestler, I'm saying as a wrestler and as the entertainment all wrapped up into one, would you say he's top 20 all time?
I would certainly probably, if I had a top 20 list, yeah, Taker would probably be on my top 20 list for sure. I would probably even maybe put him in a top 15 actually.
Okay. Okay. So what do you think makes him unique as compared to people like Flair besides the obvious? But people like Stone Cold,
I
Sting,
think,
anybody else that's ever performed. What
I
made
think,
Undertaker unique and stand out, other than the obvious?
I think that you just said it right there. The uniqueness of the Undertaker character. I think he was, and I'll stand by this, and even more, I'll stand by this even more so than with Sting, because Sting wasn't the right guy with the right gimmick at the right time. That was all planned out. Undertaker, this was a brand new gimmick. Nobody knew if it was going to work. People had already refused it to Vince McMahon. They didn't want to be the Undertaker character. I think he was the right guy at the right time for the right with the right gimmick. I think he had the magic of timing is what made him so special. I mean, if you're talking beyond just his athleticism and his skills and his capabilities, he created the Undertaker character from just a concept and made it into the moneymaker that it was. That's what I think puts him on the legend list or the greatest of all time. And being able to, and then of course being able to evolve that character the way he did.
All right, Uncle Slam, both questions to you. I'll ask them the same way. Where would you rank The Undertaker on your all time list? And I'm saying all time being the entire package wrestler, entertainer, all of it.
Um, Definitely top 20. I would go higher and probably say he's probably in my top 10, and this is my personal opinion. Um, Given the longevity, given the the matches that he had, the obviously the record streak at WrestleMania, having probably one of the most well-known gimmicks and being able to not just get it over, but to evolve it over time and kind of keep it the same, but also make it different at the same time. Um, I put him in top 10. Like I said, I can't say uh, you know, what's it called, Mount Rushmore, because I think there's some other people um, a little bit higher on that. But I would put him top 10. Like I have no problem putting the Taker in the top 10 as far as wrestling. Um,
If
and
you
then
had
the
a
second
10
part,
man battle royal, he would be in there.
yeah, because like I said, his size, his agility. I mean, big men wasn't walking on tight ropes, and it's just like JD said. I mean, like you didn't see big guys, jumping over, ropes and stuff like he was and shit. I
Yep.
mean, like you
Especially
just
almost
didn't see it.
breaking his friggin' neck.
Yeah. Um, now, now the second part was what made him what different, or what was it like interesting compared to
What
Flair and
what besides the obvious, besides the, Undertaker mystique and everything, the dead man stuff, what made him, unique compared to people like Flair, Stone Cold, Austin, Brett, all the greats?
what made them different?
What
I
made him
would
stand out,
stand
unique?
out. I think it first of it, it's some of it starts with the way he got into the business. Like he's an old school guy, and he came up the right way. You know, he paid his dues, he suffered and shit. He gained a lot of respect from the boys in the back. Everybody, no matter who it was, always respected the Undertaker. So it starts with just coming up the right way, and I think his love for the business because as a wrestler, you have to give up a lot. You give up a lot of family, you give up a lot of you know kids and stuff, and like he'll even admit, I think his first two or three kids didn't get the best version of him because his love of the business was more important than raising kids, and he went through three wives. So it shows that he wasn't staying at home, as people say and stuff. He was on the road, or he would probably stay married a little bit longer. Like he loved the business. Like he bled. He was a lot like Vince. Like the business came first, no matter what. Whether he liked it or he didn't like it, the business was always going to come first in his life, and I think that's what separated him from a lot of people because he really he lived that shit. Like I said, it wasn't just about me being a star. I'm gonna do what's best for the business, whether I like it or not. Whether it means I got to drop this title, whether it means I got to give up my streak to get somebody over. I'm gonna do what's best for business, and I think that's what made him stand out because he put his ego to the side and just wanted the best for the business, and I think he gave up a lot for it. So to me, I mean, that's what makes him different than a lot of people.
And to go to what you were saying, it was almost like you're talking about putting the business first. It's no business. It's no different than a dad having to, regardless of what's going on, besides the games, the dances, whatever. I gotta get up and go work. I gotta go do this. This is what I do for work, so I gotta go work. You know what I'm saying? I think it's people don't understand that. It's on a different scale. But these people work just as hard as a blue collar worker with the
Actually, harder,
travel.
man, because you're on the road, what, almost 300 days a year?
Right. I mean, the schedule's a little bit better now and
Yeah,
everything because of
but that's still
the,
a long time to be away from your family. I mean, you
it
spend more
is.
time with the people you work with than than your own family.
Yep. But, and I think for me to sum it up, as far as, for his all time ranking, I don't know. I mean, that would be something that I would really have to sit down and think about. Um, Realistically, would I put him in the top 10 of complete package? See, because I just changed my mind when I said that out loud. Yes, I would put him in the top 10 of complete package just because he was a good enough and I don't mean he was a bad wrestler by saying this, but he was a good enough wrestler and he developed his unique set of moves and all that stuff and style to where it worked for him. It was great. I hate that it took the toll on his body the way it did, same as Hogan and all the other ones that gave up their body to entertain us throughout all of wrestling. Thank all of you all, even the ones today. Thank you. Um, but it's like, I think, yes, I would put him in the top 10 just because the whole package was something you always had to see. It was like a Hulk. It was like an Andre. It was, it was the must see thing, even if it wasn't, just like we was talking about earlier. Even if the streak match at WrestleMania wasn't a title match. It was one of the top 3 most relevant matches on the card. Period. So it's like I I think that, like, yeah, he would be top 10 as far as that goes. What makes him unique to me is, and I think me and you were saying the same thing, Uncle Slam, is I'm going to harken back to what I said earlier. He's just him, Andre, Race. I can't think of anybody else right now off the top of my head that when I think of those people, I don't think Flash. I don't think anything super duper special other than, the Undertaker's obvious. But, the fact that he was a more athletic big man was kind of, one of those things. But at the end of the day, it was just the respect that they commanded. And I think that was the most unique thing about him, was that no matter in all those names, he was in a locker room with all those names, and he was the locker room leader every time. You see what I'm saying? And the only other person that probably, the only other 2 people that anybody of them ever experienced was Harley Race and Andre the Giant. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. But yeah, so JD, sum it up for us of what you think about Mr. I was about to say Mr. Andre the Giant, Mr. Mark Calloway, The Undertaker, Mean Mark Callis, Texas Red, The Punisher. I could say he's got some names, but yeah, what do you think about old The Undertaker, the dead man? Overall,
I think he's definitely a legend. Certainly, we know as a Hall of Famer and iconic, to say the least. So that's pretty much it. Just a legend, and he deserves to be in the argument for in the top 10 or whether you want to talk about a Mount Rushmore. He definitely deserves to be in the conversation, even if you're not picking him.
I agree with you 100%. Uncle Slam.
Honestly, I don't know what can be said that I haven't already really said about the Undertaker, as far as longevity, the respect, the love for the business. I mean, there's a reason why he lasted 30 years, and a lot of people didn't. You can't say. I mean, there's not many people that you can say that was 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 a mainstay for 30 years and was always in something compared to a lot of other people. Like the Undertaker was always, like I said, at a WrestleMania, 90% of the time. He was always, in the mix pretty much for something. And he was one of those people that just, he didn't need a title to be relevant. So, I mean, his legacy speaks for itself. He's a Hall of Famer. He's probably, if not one of the greatest to do it, probably, you could make an argument for the greatest just because of how much time he put in. Over 2,000 matches. I mean, good.
You're breaking up, Uncle Slam.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There you go. There you go.
It's kind of like I said. I mean, after over 2,000 matches, it's just kind of hard to even um, say anything else. I mean, like his legacy just speaks for itself. Like I said, I mean, like we've already made a case of why he's so great, all the shit he's done, and so, like I said, I mean, his legacy just speaks for itself.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you all being here. Is anybody got anything else about Mr. Mark Calloway, the Undertaker?
I'm tapped out, brother. It's late.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Everybody go like, share, follow, subscribe. We appreciate everybody being here. Thank you. We will be uploading this episode and our first episode from earlier tomorrow onto YouTube and Spotify. Yeah, check us out. Go like us, follow, and all those things. Well, what is it we try to say? Drop kick and sharpshoot. The like and follow
Yeah, like,
button,
yeah,
or
like,
no,
follow,
no,
share,
no,
but
sweet chin and sharpshoot. The like, follow, and subscribe and all that stuff. Yeah, we got to work on that hook, Uncle Slam. We
yeah,
got to
yeah,
work on
definitely,
it.
definitely.
But yeah, we appreciate everybody being here. We appreciate all the support. Andrew, Superfly, Emily, Tucker, everybody. We love y'all. Keita, as always, you're always here to support. We love y'all. Keep it up. We love doing this for you all. We love wrestling. And Uncle Slam said he's tapped out, and referees hit that 3 count. We're going to ring that damn bell.